so I grew up in a home where, my mom, she was very much she wanted me to experience all different types of religions. And so we celebrated Hanukkah one year along with Christmas, and I believe that we celebrated like Kwanzaa, and we celebrated just different religions and things like that. And, even some practice of Buddhism. Anyway, and so growing up, that's kind of what I was told, was like, hey, these are all of the religions. She grew up Catholic. She really did not want me to feel guilty, and some people who come from that understand. And so, yeah, basically she just said, here, I'm going to try and give you all these experiences, and then you're going to choose, and whatever you choose is going to be right, because it's all like a relative truth type of thing. And so for much of my life, that's what I thought, and I was like, okay, your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth, and I never really thought past that. Like, I never really thought what that would do to a person or to a society, or like if there was no actual parameter of truth, like how that would actually impact my life or the people around me. And so, so that was fun. But basically, yeah, I then, in high school and things like that, I mean, I wasn't a bad kid. I never, my mom would probably say different, but I did, I kind of want to skip over that. I'm just going to go to my young adult life. So basically, when I was 19, I found out I was pregnant with my son, Dean, and that in itself was, I was 19, so if you could imagine, but I remember praying, but I don't remember even for a moment thinking I didn't question, who am I praying to, what am I doing? I just remembered sitting alone at one point because people were telling me to have an abortion and things like that. And, I went away from people at one point, and I ended up praying, and I said, I don't know what to do, and I had this overwhelming sense and kind of a very clear vision message thing where I was told it's not right to take the life of this child. And so so I said, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I guess I don't know, I'll try. And so once I made that decision, which wasn't really my decision to make, but I was then a single young mom, and I was going through prenatal yoga, trying to just, before this I was a dancer and things like that, so I had always had dance kind of in my life. And then I was going through prenatal yoga. I knew that I didn't know how to be a mom, or so then I put myself in school for early child development and child psychology. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna try and just give this kid the best shot that he has. So I went to school, I studied really hard, I did really well. I worked pretty much up until I had him, and I was doing prenatal yoga. I felt pretty good. I felt like I was doing what it was that I was supposed to do, I guess, and kind of pulling myself up by my bootstraps and just getting it done. And that also translated from prenatal yoga into meeting one of my first mentors, who started to teach me about oneness meditation and oneness healing and things like that. And basically what that means is I didn't realize until I met her that the different chants and things like that that I would either say or here in yoga classes actually meant something. And so, she started teaching me and a group of people different chants, different mantras, and we would be doing different like healings and things like that where, so basically I started to really get into that. And then I actually went through like a program so that I could have like a certificate and heal people and things like that. So I did oneness healing at first, and a lot of that was a Kundalini work. And so another reason why I'm sharing this video is that anybody who's like come from this background, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But basically, we did a lot of Kundalini work and things like that, and that's basically, like a serpentine spirit that goes through your spine energy, and that will also, you work with your chakras and things like that. And so I was pretty well learned about all of those things. So I was working with chakras, Kundalini, breath work. I was meditating a lot, chanting, but that still wasn't even as heavy as it got later. So basically, that was kind of my intro into everything. And what was interesting about that is my mentor was just like, yeah, so just talk about your divine. It could be anyone. And I do remember that there was one man there who said, well, I want my divine to be Jesus. And she said, that's great, that's fine, do it, And so there's a lot of deception. But basically, like, at that point, I had thrown out whatever belief that I had growing up, because I did go to a Christian elementary school and like 1 year of a Christian high school, but it was all out the window at this point, all the other things that I had experienced up to this point. And now going through yoga, and then also having this mentor who was telling me that I could just kind of make up like what I thought. And so that it was all the same. It was all the same, just different names. And so I did that. And then moving forward from that point, I then later got my yoga teaching certification. And so through that whole entire course, I'm know all of my postures at that point, but I'm just getting more in depth with it. And I'm doing this every day. I would never say that it was a religion, but that's exactly how I treated it. Now looking back, I would wake up at like 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning and do at least an hour of yoga, and then I would do at least an hour to 2 hours of meditation. And in that meditation and breath work and working with my chakras and things like that, I would also use crystals because I learned about that. They're actually gateways, and so I'll talk more about that in like a minute. But basically, the crystals can be used to open like occultic, I guess, like influence, yeah. And so anyway, I didn't understand any of that because everything was the same, and there was no talk of any evil forces or anything like that. The most evil thing that you would ever maybe encounter was, something that you would call a shadow spirit. And so, and people were very apt to tell me, yeah, so you might encounter this like shadow spirit or something like that. But if you do, just surround yourself in white light, and they can't harm you. Because at this point, I'm also astral projecting. I'm also now I'm meditating to the point where I'm able to astral project, which means that I can leave my body and go over different areas where other people might be and things like that. And And actually, I learned later that a lot of occultic people do that so that they're able to also claim territory and things like that in the supernatural realm and the spiritual realm. I didn't know that either. I was just practicing this kind of New Age practice that turned very real for me. This is what I was doing every day, you know. I do it every morning and probably like at night too, most of the time. At this point, I had already also just changed my my entire diet to being vegan so that I could be a clear channel, because then I was readying myself to become a Reiki healer. And this is over years of time, so I just like want to say that too. And I then walk into a place where I am starting to be healed with Reiki, and the guy there, he was a new Reiki master. And so basically I had asked him, well, I really want to become a Reiki healer, like what do I have to do? And they had different courses and things like that. And he's like, yeah, come back in and I'll get you attuned to Reiki. And I was like, okay, great. And in that school of thought, I guess, any type of energy that you're working with, like you can attune to a higher frequency of that energy so that you're able to do more things. And at that point, I thought I was helping people. Like I really did think that when I was placing my hand over my friend's head as they were meditating and things like that, and they would see just like vibrant like colors and things like that, like more than what you could even imagine, you know. I thought I was helping, I thought I was healing. Not at all did I think that I was like contributing to anything evil. I didn't even, the last thing that we talk about in the New Age is evil. The last thing that we talk about is sin. There is no sin in the New Age. That's a dirty word. You don't talk about that. And so, yeah, just pressing on, I get attuned to Reiki, and how that also happened, which I'll just talk about because it's, yeah. So he's a newer Reiki master, and I remember that I was at one point in this attuning, I was laying down and meditating. At this point, I could meditate for hours. Like, I could either sit in meditation or I could lay in meditation for hours. Anyway, he led me through a meditation at first, and that first meditation really, you know, got me. I saw a lot of things. I saw a lot of things that I'll just share. But basically, he also said, "Okay, I'm just going to introduce the spirit into this room." And I was like, "Okay." I mean, the spirit of Reiki, in my understanding at that point, was, and the spirit of Kundalini, the spirit of these things, my understanding of these things at that point was very much just that, well, this is all under the name of healing, and this is all under the name of love. And so why would that spirit even, I would never even think of it as a negative thing. And so it's like, okay, I'm ushering in the spirit right now, and you know, you just need to meditate and yield to this spirit to overcome you. And basically, now that I think about it, that's the very real way to have a demon that I did later have to be delivered from. But anyway, so just after this point, things quicken. So that's why I'm building up to this as well. So he ushered in the spirit. Spirit enters me. I start to see visions. First, it's just all different kinds of landscapes and things like that, just so real. Like like so vivid, like I am literally flying over these things. And I wasn't on any drugs, nothing. I was being attuned to Reiki at this point. I had this amazing like just vision, and it's just so, it was really beautiful. And at one point then, I settle in to a cave that's in my mind that in this vision was like a crystal, and then it panned out, and there was a bunch of different, like the first eye that I went through was like an eagle eye, and then it was all these different eyes of these different creatures. And so I mean, I woke up, I mean, like I didn't wake up, I got up from my meditation, and he said, well, what happened? You know, I could feel that there was something really powerful that happened. And I explained to him everything. He had me write it all down and things like that. After I explained it, he said, you need to write this down. So I did. And it was very convincing to me that something had happened. And yeah, and then he had me lay down one more time to just kind of like seal that. And so I went through a meditation to have that happen as well. Yeah, after that point, nothing was like weird or wrong. Everything was like pretty normal. I was just now able to do Reiki. So then I'm teaching yoga. I am doing Reiki, and I'm able to open my own like space with another healer to perform Reiki healings on people, kind of like just in and out by appointments and things like that. Anyway, and then I also then meet another mentor of mine that comes into my life, and she hires me as her personal assistant. And she is kind of like a yoga maven who I had looked up to. And the way that you kind of like also you learn from these people who would be your mentors and things like that. That's how you learn more in this spiritual idea with like New Age and things like that. So anyway, so I start following her. I start just like doing what she's saying. That's what I mean. It's like she would have me go with her at different places. And she was super popular. She is super popular. She has like millions of followers on Instagram and things like that. At that point, I just wanted to learn from her, and I had a very different idea of success at that point. But anyway, and so I felt like she was helping people, and I wanted to help people too. She had like written a book to help people, and anyway. In the world standards, it all seemed pretty good. And she took me to Kauai, North Shore, Kauai. And there, a lot of things happened. So some things I can't say just because I did like sign like a disclosure form and things like that. And so there were pretty high up people, especially in the world of like what I was doing, in the yoga world, in working. I never worked with ayahuasca, but a lot of the leaders in this movement were working with ayahuasca and things.
Can you explain what ayahuasca is? Because most people don't know what that is.
Okay, yeah, so that's a plant. And the people say this is a plant medicine. Just much like you would say like shrooms, like mushrooms and things like that would be like a plant medicine that would like heighten your consciousness and things like that, so that you are able to see more of what you're supposed to be led through in this lifetime. Anyway, so she takes me to North Shore, Kauai. I go to a couple of these people's homes that are there. They have like fully running sustainable eco homes and farms on the North Shore of Kauai. Just like, yeah. And there's healers there and things like that. All of these people are talking about like the Lumerians that are at North Shore, Kauai. And basically that is just, if you look at Helena Blavatsky, she talks about who was the founder of the Theosophical Society. I didn't know this at first. She was also a Satanist. Like no one says this is the origin of these things, but she had her theory of these different people, and that's like kind of one of the categories that she would talk about is the Lumerians. And anyway, later on I find out that that's actually not true. Those beings are very real, but they're not Lumerians and they're not aliens and they're not, like, it's not those things. They're actually demons. And so I had no idea. And so I don't want to go through this video and just, you know, I just want to be really mindful about like speaking that truth, because that's what happened at the end of me being saved. But basically, yeah, so she ended up taking me to a cave in Kauai as well. And she said, yeah, there's a mermaid that like lives in here and has eaten a lot of men and things like that. And there's just this huge legend and things like that. So we actually swam in those waters. She's like, we're gonna be fine. You can swim in these waters, and just like no men can or whatever. And so then, I mean, I remember going in there and feeling like a really heavy presence, and I swam and then I came back out. I had one of my crystals, which was a citrine crystal that I would meditate with on my third eye, because at that point I had opened that. And so I was meditating with that crystal in the water, and I was just asking, I was asking for knowledge. Yeah, so I asked whatever was there for knowledge, and I did that for a while. Put that in my backpack. I didn't really think about it after, but this is going to tie in. So, so I go back to the States, or I guess Hawaii is the United States, but basically I come back here and basically I again just continue to try and build on what I'm doing, and very, like, I was teaching yoga again, Reiki healing, able to open up my own spot, was a personal assistant to this really well-known yoga guru. So there was like no reason for me to stop any of that stuff, really. So yeah, and I was also rock climbing and things like that. And this is when someone came into my life where I was at a rock climbing gym, and this one guy came up to me at first, you know, just asked for my number. I thought, okay, this is just somebody who's trying to like pick me up or something, go on a date. And so I give him my number. He's like, do you climb here often? I'm like, yeah. And so after that point, we do meet up, and we meet up for a couple of times. And each time that we meet up, he starts to talk to me about Jesus. He starts to talk to me about the gospel and things like that. And I remember like looking at his Bible and just being like, so, okay, I've had all of these experiences. Where is that in here? And I was actually pretty, looking back now, I was pretty crude and not as tolerant as I thought that I was. Growing up, again, I was taught like you need to be tolerant of all things and stuff like that. But I had a certain, I just felt like Christians were narrow-minded. I felt like how could you tell me about what's happening in my life? How can this tell me what's happening in my life right now? How does this apply? I felt like they were very like misled, and that they were just doing something that other people were telling them to do. Anyway, and so I felt like I had the knowledge that this guy needed. And I shared with him a lot of things, and probably after like the fourth or fifth time that we had met up, and he had already taken me to one of his churches at this point, because I did want to be tolerant of everything, right? So I went to church with him one time, and he he and I ended like talking kind of bad because I couldn't see, like I couldn't just understand why he was being so, I just felt like narrow-minded about certain things. I was like, well, how could you tell me that this is an absolute truth when obviously it's not, in my perspective, in my experience, and things like that. So we ended talking. And I didn't know at this point he started to pray for me, because Christians do that. And so I then meet this one woman who is like a 7th generation gypsy. Just if you could see like the hand, whose hand was in my life at this point. But it's interesting because then you'll see the end. Anyway, but basically like, then I meet the 7th generation gypsy who's from like Croatia. And she's really just like my age, tall, beautiful, just like tons of fun. We get along together great right away. She's hanging around at my place for a couple months. We're just building a friendship, a really good friendship at this point. And she's always reading tarot, always reading tarot. People come up to her, hey, can you read my tarot? Of course, I'll read your tarot. She's always reading tarot. 3 months go by, I never ask her to read my tarot. I guess you're supposed to ask. I guess that's how that works. There is a legality that happens in these things. And so basically, as 3 months go by, I finally say, you know what, like, can you read mine? She's like, yeah. So she reads mine. Scary how accurate, and like at that time, I thought that was really amusing. And then she was like, yeah, you know what, I think that you like could totally do this. And she starts showing me the entire deck of tarot. And I'm thinking to myself, awesome. I'm healing people with Reiki. I'm meditating. I am getting like, I'm doing yoga. I'm doing this with all these people. They're healing their backs. They're healing their, they're eating better. They're like doing all these things. All of this on the surface seems so good. And I was like, and this now, like I felt like it was a gift to me that these things were happening, And so she starts going through the entire tarot deck. At this point, she tells me all the stories, all the background and things like that. She starts reading. I start reading. I guess I have an affinity for it, and I'm pretty good. I meet different spirit guides along the way through my meditation and different practices and things like that up to this point. And now I'm able to also hear audibly what's going on with the person across from me. So there's familiar spirits that are around people, and my people that I was working with, because I had opened up a contract with them where I said, yes, like you have a certain amount of access to me, and I'm letting you in this way. I would sometimes hear the other person's, or I'd hear mine, and there was usually a conversation going on. And so I would read the cards, and I could definitely read the cards, but I was mostly hearing audible information about what was happening with them. So when I would say, is this what's happening with you? They would say, yeah, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, spirit is telling me. And I wasn't lying, because spirit was telling me, and that's all I knew. I don't know whose spirit, I didn't know what, I thought it was all good. I thought I was trying to help this person. And so it used to, like many people, even after my conversion and things like that, would message me and say, yeah, but your reading to me was so uplifting to me, was so encouraging to me. How could that be wrong? And if anything, I feel like many of the things that I was told to confirm or say only kept them in more bondage looking back than ever. Stay in that relationship with that person. Wait out for that person. Just so many different things. That was just a relationship example, but basically like so many things to just keep people in bondage when I look back on it. Yeah. So basically, yeah, that's up until that point. I have no idea. So now I add that to my list of things that I'm doing for people at events and things like that. I was working with people who still now run some really big New Age festivals right now. This last year was the first year that I went back and I actually prayed for people. But this is a year and a half after being saved. And so, but I used to help with those things. I used to be a key person to like do things there, hold a booth and teach and dance and share. And now, yeah, like, so I was able to share those things as well. All the things that I had mentioned that I worked up to this point. And then, as more prayers and things like that were happening, I do remember that one of the last encounters that I did have with the person who was trying to share the gospel with me, I remember leaving and going up to my apartment door and saying to myself, like, but what about Jesus? You know, like, what about him? Like, why can't I pin this down? You know, like, why doesn't he make sense in all of this? Why would somebody be coming up to me and saying he is the truth, the life, and the way? Why? Why is there an absolute to this when everywhere else and everyone else that I talk to, it's not that way? It's pick and choose. It's do as you will be the whole of the law. And that's actually the Satanic credo that I learned after being saved. Yeah, I remember there then was, like I feel like at that point I was even given like kind of like a vision at that point, because I was very visual and I could audibly hear like things and stuff like that. And so at that point I had a tiny, like in my mind I was thinking, but what about Jesus? What about him? Why is he so different? Why can't I pin this down, you know? Just for a split second, this was like a thought in my mind, but it was so like just close to my heart. And I remember like seeing like a tiny piece of my heart opening up to him, like in this vision during this like question before going into my apartment. And after that happened, and after the prayers and things like that, which I didn't know people were praying for me, people started to pray that I would detest the works of the evil one, of the enemy, of Satan. And I was like, didn't even know that they did that. But I remember one day waking up and after like a few like weeks of just doing tarot over and over again for people and just feeling like just completely exhausted, I did everything else the same. So it wasn't like anything was changed for me, like in my practice. I was still waking up, I was still meditating, doing yoga, I was still eating like really well, doing doing all of the things that I needed to do to ready my heart and my mind and things like that to do this work. And I remember after every time I just felt so exhausted, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I just remember just being like, you know what, I don't even want to do this. Like, that's when like my spirit guides started to get angry with me, which I didn't even know was a thing. For me, I was like, yeah, like, okay, you can be upset that I'm not reading tarot. I'm the boss, not you. So, you know, sorry. I'm not doing this. And it started with that. I'm a very stubborn person. So when I saw that they started to retaliate to me by, because I guess I opened them up spiritually to have access to like my energy and things like that. So I would wake up in the morning and not even be able to like get out of bed. And I was pregnant. I've had exhaustion, like being pregnant, like a really real exhaustion. This was just like another level, like a supernatural exhaustion that I can't even explain. So I knew it was a fight. And I didn't know what I was fighting or why. I remember asking them, like, why? You know, like, I just don't want to. I remember giving in and reading. I remember giving in and like doing whatever it is that they said because I just didn't want to be tormented. I didn't know that that was happening to me, you know? I just didn't understand. I didn't know what was going on. All I know is that I didn't want to do certain things that they wanted me to do. But I had given them access over my body enough where they could physically mess with me. And at this point, I'm really confused. There's a couple months that happen that go by where I don't understand what's happening. I'm doing everything right. I'm going to all of my different spiritual teachers and things like that, and I'm asking them. I'm going to different ones that they're telling me to go to. They're like, here, go ask this person. Here, go, you're gonna get healed by this person. Don't worry, you know, like, and I remember just like running around like a chicken with its head cut off and just seeking for answers. Help me, help me. I'm being like tormented right now. Help me, what's going on? I didn't even know this was a thing. How come no one told me? And yeah, I was at the end of my rope. I spent money on trying to get this fixed, get this handled, get this taken care of. All of my friends, I had exhausted all of my resources. And I was so physically, emotionally, just at the end of my rope. To the point where they would infiltrate my mind to have suicidal thoughts, where I knew it was outside of me because there was nothing, I knew them. I knew it was an outside thought of myself, the suicidal thought that they would try and implant in my head and like in my consciousness and things like that, because I didn't do what they wanted. And so I would say, no, why? Why would I ever want to do that? It was kind of like them even saying like, well, why don't you just do this? Because you'll just come back in another form. Maybe you didn't do all the things that you were supposed to do this time around, but you'll come back. So just end it if it's too much. And I remember just being like, no, why would I do that? Why would I do that? So I knew it was an outside thought, an outside suicidal thought. Okay, just laying that down. But basically then, after I had exhausted all of my resources and I had no one else to go to, I literally spent so much money, and I tried to go to even people who didn't charge me money and things like that. I tried it all. And so then I grabbed the crystal. I remembered the crystal that was in my backpack from Kauai. And I said, ugh, I'm just gonna meditate with this. Maybe this will give me what I need. I tried everything. And when I started to meditate with this crystal, placed it on my forehead and started to meditate. And as I did, I saw this vision of this like huge marine-like creature. And she was the scariest thing I've ever seen. Like, her head was like this huge head with all these spikes, and like her teeth were like these sharp teeth. And she had these little beady eyes, and she didn't say anything to me, but she told me telepathically, like, and with her eyes was just like, there was just so much hate from this creature to me. And I had encountered different creatures and things like that through my astral projection and things like that, right? This person, this, whatever this was, which now I know, but like at that time I was like confused. I was like, why? Why do you hate me? Why? And at one point, you know, I knew that she also wanted to eat me, which was also super like just, I didn't understand. Like, why would you want to eat me? I don't understand. I don't understand. What do you want? Why? And so another thing that happens with these spirits is they'll if they have access over you, they'll kind of gang up. So I had already had 2 that was ganging up on me up to this point, making me super exhausted and having suicidal thoughts, okay? Then once this lady came in, and I had had her at least enter in a way that anytime I would close my eyes, I would see her after this point. I just knew that she wanted to kill me. And there was just so much, like I just didn't understand what was going on. Then they kind of converged, I guess, and after that meditation, they started to take away my appetite. And so I would never willingly, unless I was willingly fasting, but I was not willing at this point, to not eat. And they would torment me, and if I would try and things like that to eat. And I had dropped like 20 or 30 pounds within like a month and a half because I was overly exhausted. They would take my energy whenever they wanted, and they would give me suicidal thoughts whenever they wanted, and they would take away me eating whenever they wanted. So I was already pretty skinny at that point, you know. At that point, I was very, very skinny, and that was it. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't understand like what was happening to me. All I was trying to do was help people, and I didn't understand why these spirits wanted to kill me. At the end of the day, I didn't understand. And so I remember the only thing that I knew to do was to do more of the things that I was doing. And because then I learned more practices from the New Age, because they were like, this is what you really need to do so that those things don't bother you. So I was doing everything, man. I remember after losing that 20 to 30 pounds, watching a video from this one really famous tarot reader. She's actually on YouTube. That's kind of scary. But anyway, so she's on YouTube. I looked her up. She had like a monthly thing, and I remember watching her specific thing, and she's like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna be in town this Saturday, like, you know, and things like that. And what was interesting too is that she would bring in the Bible. Like I remember her like reading and talking about Nineveh. I remember her reading and like just like talking about different like things in the Bible and things like that. But she'd also talk about the Quran. She'd also talk about like other stuff. She was very, very well read, very, very well versed. She was also able to speak very eloquently. So to me, this person just like had all this knowledge, and she was like, you know, so tolerant of all these things, and she was speaking so much truth through her cards and things like that. She's like, yeah, I'll be in town. Come and see me if you can. And she's at San Diego. I said, you know what? Called up my best friend at the time. And I said, yeah, I don't know what else to do, but I think I need to go see her. And she was like, okay, I'll go with you. So that Saturday we make that trip down there. And she has such a presence about her, first of all, in the room. And so she starts calling out people, answering things, you know, telling them about themselves and things like that. And people are just blown away, you know. And I mean, I was blown away. It was pretty intense. And then she starts to tell a story, and she said, yeah, well, you know, part of like what is happening here is that right before I like had developed all of these gifts that I'm sharing with you tonight, there was this huge 20-foot tall, somewhat shadow creature that came to visit me. And he said, you know, I'm here to kill you. I'm going to eat you. And and she said that she kind of looked at him, and she said, you know something? You're kind of cute. And the whole entire room is laughing. And she's laughing. And I'm thinking about my thing that keeps like tormenting me. Huge 20-foot marine figure that wants to eat me. And I'm thinking, I need to talk to her about this. And so she goes on, the end of it happens, and people are going up to her to say goodbye and things like that. And I go up to her and I say, hey, this is what's happening to me. What's going on? How do I stop this? What's going on? I need help. She said, she's like, this is really good. This is really good. And I said, what? And she's like, yeah, this is great because that's your shadow side. And all you have to do is make friends with your shadow side. And then after you make friends with your shadow side, you'll be able to do all these things. And I just remember just looking at her, and I just remember just thinking, really, like, this is it. This is it. I can't live this way. I'm gonna die. There's no answers, nothing. To be tormented by a world unseen is crazy. No one had an answer for me. And I remember getting in the car with my friend at that point, and we just erupted in like an argument. Now I know a little bit more about spiritual warfare to talk about that, but at that time I didn't. And I didn't know how susceptible I was to it. My friend still doesn't know. And so she said, yeah, well, we just need to meditate. Once we meditate, we'll be fine. So we meditate, things like that. And we just drive back to her place. She goes into, I love my friend. She was really trying to be there for me, okay? But yeah, so we get back to her house in Venice. She goes into the room with her partner, and I go on the couch. And I remember it was like 4 a.m. or something, and I remember closing my eyes and just thinking, like, there's no hope. There's no hope. And yeah, closed my eyes, and I heard in my dream, you need to go to church. And I remember in my dream saying, what? And waking up at 7:30 in the morning. Close my eyes at 4, that happens, wake up at 7:30 in the morning. And I feel like somebody put my finger in a light socket. And I never felt this way before, where I felt a conviction, because I didn't know what conviction felt like, and it was so strong at that point. I didn't know what that felt like. And I just got up and I said, yeah. And I literally didn't even say bye to my friends. I went straight in my car. I drove straight down to the last church that I remember even going to, was with that one guy who shared the gospel with me, and we ended things horribly. And I just remember going and driving. That's like an hour's distance. So anyway, I just remember driving, getting to that church, thinking like, that's not a lot of people here, whatever, maybe it's a slow Sunday, I don't care, I'm here. And so I get to the doors, I grab onto the handles, and I pull it open, and it's locked. And I'm like, what? You know? And I'm thinking, no. And then I'm thinking, like, you know, these people want me to be here. Like, what's going on? Like, is this a game, you know? And so I just couldn't even, I was like, these people want me to be here, I don't understand. And I remember even having a conviction of like, this is how it could be. And I kind of freaked out, and I got in my car. I called that person because there's no one else that I knew. And I probably could have Googled it, but I was just so like, I gotta go. This is all I know is that I have to do today. It was like, just like, that was my mission, that was it. I had no hope, but I had this crazy dream, and I felt like I was like somebody stuck my finger in a light socket, and I had to go. So I went, and I called him, and he said, yeah, they actually moved. They moved this weekend. So, and, but they're actually here, and he gave me turn-by-turn like directions to go to the new spot that they're in. By the time I got there, I just like was just so like I felt like I couldn't stop talking. I just told him like everything. I told him everything that was happening up to that point. From when I saw him, from when I met him, up until this point, he had no idea. And I'm just crying, and I'm just telling him. But yeah, he's like, you know what, I think like I didn't end up going to that service. He was like, you should just go home, take a shower, I'll meet you at the 11, we'll go to this other church. I said, okay, whatever. Because at this point I was just done talking, and I did that. We go to this church, and it's a Baptist church, and I don't know anything about any of this stuff. I don't understand, I don't get it. And so, but I'm talking to him more even when we're in the car on the way there, and just like, there's just too much to say about the last couple months. And there's so many things that are connecting. And once we get up into, but I still didn't have, like, I was just like, why, like, what? And so, so I get into the church, and as I walk into the church, and I've never had this experience since, or ever. So I walk into the church, and there is a string, like, just musicians and just two people singing, and they're singing praises to the Lord, and I'm like, I walk in and I just get flooded. And it's like the atmosphere is so thick. And like I walk into a space that's just so thick. And the music goes, like, I felt like in my ear and down in my heart. And all I could say was, yes, this is how music is supposed to sound for you, God. And I remember even being like, what did I just say? And so these things were happening, and I was even catching myself being like, what is this revelation I'm having? I didn't understand what conviction was, what revelation was. And then I go to sit down. As that happens, I just start crying. And it's not even like a crying, it's like the floodgates in my eyes just open up. And it felt like the tears, since I was a child, just like came out. Like all the tears that you could ever imagine, like just somewhere deep in my body opened up and just came out. And I didn't even have to try, and it was just pouring out of my face, just pouring out of my face. And at this point, it's just, it felt like a cleansing kind of. And I sit down, and this old man goes to the pulpit. I don't even know what this guy's got to say. I'm already just like, oh man, why am I here? And he starts speaking. And the moment he starts speaking, I know that message is for me. And I'm like, God, you're speaking to me right now. And again, just the floodgates of my eyes just open, and I'm just gushing with tears. And it's not even a cry, it's gushing of tears coming out of my face. And everything this person is saying, the word of God to me. And I was like, this is it. This is it. I was just like, this guy's talking to me. God's like talking to me. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. And all I know is that my friend kept getting me like a piece of tissue to wipe my tears and things like that, and like sitting down and then going and get more. And, I was like, just bring the box, like, and so we brought the box. I'm the only one hysterically kind of, or like, just gushing in a Baptist church. Now I know it's kind of a little bit more of like a, nobody's like, oh, like, so I'm just like, oh, really? Like, truth. And just truth was spoken to me at that time. Truth that like No one had. No one could tell me what was going on with me, but that man could. Why? Not because of him, because of the word. And that's exactly what I needed. I didn't even know how thirsty my soul was. Spiritually, I was dead. And I was so spiritual. So how could that be? And I just remember after everything, just looking at my friend and just saying, I think I need a Bible. And he was like, yes. And I was just like, no. I'm just like, never in a million years. And I remember I had tried to read that Bible before. I tried to read that Bible with that person before. Because I wanted to, I tried. I swear I've tried. I tried before this point. And it wasn't until that day when I got my Bible, after that entire experience, that I opened it up. And I wish I bookmarked where it was, because I don't even know. But I remember reading it and understanding it. And for him to tell me, I gave you eyes for my word now. And I was like, I'm done. I just gushed, just cried. Once I read, I could understand it. And he said, I gave you eyes for my word. And I was just like, I'm done, I'm done. And that was, of course, when I knew I was saved. But since then has just been like a living testimony. He has delivered me from satanic and demonic forces. The truth of the unseen realm and who he is and what purpose he has for my life has been unveiled. And he has his Holy Spirit indwelling in me to teach me these things and to always point to Jesus, always. And I have been able to see friends of mine from the New Age be saved, but the same story, God has used my testimony in so many ways where someone will look at me and say, me too. And they're ready. And so I don't know if anybody's going to see this, but yeah, if you're ready to do that, I just want to maybe lead us through a prayer and just knowing that there is truth and that there is someone, Jesus. I didn't know who that someone was, and I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to reject it. I was the last person ever to think that I would become Christian, and not Christian as a religion, but a Christian as a follower of Jesus is a completely different thing. And so if you want to accept him in your heart and see what he can do for you in your life and to save you, there's a reason why his name is above all names and can cast away the evil ones. If you are in bondage right now, just please pray with me. Our Lord, Heavenly Father, God, you have created all things. If some of these things are hard to accept right now, help us wrestle with them. God, we pray this now. I know that I have done so many things that have been putting me in bondage. But I want freedom. God, I want to know who you are. Jesus, I want to know who you are. Please come to me in a way that will be my testimony. Come to me in a real way and indwell my heart, Lord. Please guide my steps. Teach me your ways. Thank you that you bring truth and actual water to such a dry and barren world. There's just death without you. God, help us see this. I pray, Lord, that you drop the veil from the eyes of the people viewing this. You drop the scales from their eyes, Lord, so that they can see your ultimate truth. I pray, God, that you're able to take anything away from blocking their ears to hearing your truth. Lord, I pray that you bring people to minister to them, even today, to share your word with them. God, please indwell in them, regenerate them. Show them that you are alive, Lord, because you are, and you have been, and you are now, and you will be forevermore. Love covers a multitude of sins, and you love us, Lord. Pray for this for every person that watches this. In Jesus' name, amen.